Hello and good evening. Sorry, I was laughing at Hamilton already. I'm alternate juror, and thank you for joining my channel this evening. Gabby. Whoop. Oh, you found the judge. That's what you found. Good evening. Hamilton. You already got me laughing with your answer to what up, Hammy? What up? The sky. Hello, Carmen. Long time no chat. JK. All right. So we are hey Chrissy. How you doing? So we're going to do, I think I do need, sorry, to do day 2, which was today, of this Blake Scanlon trial. He is accused of unaliving his girlfriend with 28 sharp wounds, to put it nicely. And then he called to, well, he didn't call, he unalived her Friday night into Saturday morning, and then didn't call anybody until Sunday. So he called 911 Sunday, claimed self-defense. And she was clearly, from what they've described, was not self-defense. He was jealous because she had broken up with him. She went out that night, I believe, with her cousin, met somebody else, met a coworker, met up with a coworker out at wherever they were. Those two end up hooking up in his truck in the parking lot, and Blake opened the door on them and invited her to come home very calmly, apparently, and she unfortunately did. And that was the end of her. Alexis is her name. Sorry. So we're going to do part of day 2. Both the defense and the state rested today. So I'm going to do up until the medical examiner comes on, and then we'll do the medical examiner testimony tomorrow, listen to their closings. I'm guessing we might have, I don't know how long you never know how long a jury's going to deliberate on anything. What we think might be really simple and straightforward, one way or the other, no matter what you're thinking, they may not. I think what they're going to struggle with is, was it a crime of passion or not? And I don't know that it meets that. And he opened the door and did all the sharp-edged action right there in the truck. I would have said, yeah, crime of passion for sure. But he took her home. They had some time to calm down. So I'm not sure that would meet that standard. I have no idea because I'm not an attorney. But so we'll pick up with the judge coming in this morning. There's tons and tons still, again, of sidebars and breaks and arguments still. So, yeah, Chrissy, I'm with you. Like, I'm not buying the crime of passion thing. And the pillow and the blanket next to her in the kitchen, because to put it not gross, he hit her jugular, and she had, and plus the 28 over 27 other wounds, there wasn't any red fluid left in her body. So that had to be really messy. So I don't know. All right. So the judge came in. He said a couple things before this, but the audio was horrible. So I skipped it because you couldn't understand it anyway. Uh, unfortunately, still no closed captions on this, but everything. Oh, turn that up so you all can hear it. I got everything else boosted, so we should be good to go.
Regarding the DNA, I just want to make sure that those stipulations have been reviewed and signed by Mr. Scanlon.
I don't know if, did you have a chance to review them? They hadn't changed since I last emailed them to you.
Yes, I have reviewed them. I do need to go over, I do need to review them with Mr. Scanlon. I've reviewed him.
Okay.
Principal them, but he does need to sign them.
Right.
But we can get that in.
Okay.
They're also, I sent to, and I didn't get a reply back, and it was kind of late.
It's a sound open.
But I did send a proposed stipulation regarding those videos to 88 Green last night. So we don't need to deal with that now, but at lunch or at some point we need to, I guess, review that.
Okay.
And I would just want to address that with the court briefly before we bring in the jurors. And again, I told the court counsel yesterday I would agree to the foundational elements that Mazza went to this place and got video. That's nothing has changed there. However, I didn't seek to admit these videos because I can't authenticate them. And it might help if the court saw the video, but I will say that it's a grainy video of a sedan passing by the road. Detective Mazza would not have been able to testify that was Alexis Avery's car. You can't see a license plate. You can't see how many people are in the car. And in fact, I will also say, as far as the timestamp goes, in every case, typically in order for the Commonwealth to admit evidence that the timestamps are accurate, that has to be verified somehow. And Detective Mazza's here. We could do a voir dire. He never went down to the soup kitchen where he got these videos from, looked at it, and looked at his phone and said, yeah, this timestamp's accurate. I just don't want the jurors to be in a position where they're having to guess about evidence in this case.
I thought I asked you, though, at sidebar whether or not we needed Mazza for authentication, and you said no. So I thought I asked you if authentication was stipulated to, and you said yes, because that was the reason I asked the question.
Again, my recollection is that I stipulated to the foundation of Mazza went there and got these.
Well, foundation to me is authentication. I mean, that's the foundation that you need to have it, that he would need as the person who retrieved it to have them admissible.
And I'm not trying to be obstinate here. When I looked at the videos again after our conversation yesterday, I can't stipulate to something that he can't testify to.
The stipulation that I proposed was simply that as he testified to yesterday, that he recovered surveillance video from these two locations, what he testified to, from that showed depicted the street scene at these two locations between, and I believe I put in the stipulation, 1:18 a.m. and 1:22 a.m. The timestamps are on there. There's no evidence. I'd also, and I'm not asking the Commonwealth to stipulate that it is definitely the car, that it is definitely, who was in there. I will say that it was provided to me in discovery with, we believe this is the car, and there you can see in one of the images a pink sweater, somebody wearing a pink sweater in the passenger seat.
My suggestion is that you work on the stipulation, because that you can stipulate that it are images of a car at this particular time, essentially. I mean, or it is an image of a car retrieved by Detective Mazza.
And that is a line
question, and just leave, and that's it. And the jury can credit it or not credit it, however you want to work it. But I think the language of the stipulation, we may be quarreling over.
No,
words.
I don't even mean to be quarreling about this. I just didn't want to be in a position
where.
That's
the wrong word. Quibbling.
Yeah, I just didn't want to be in a position where the jurors left to have to speculate about who's in the car or what time it is. I mean, even though there's a timestamp attached to that video, again, and I do note in the stipulation, Attorney Elkins wrote approximately between these time periods, which, again, Detective Mazza wouldn't be able to say that I verified that timestamp is accurate. Is it probably around that time? Yeah. So
I would be arguing the same inference that Detective Mazza himself made very early in the investigation. That's the reason why he pulled these surveillance videos, the reason why he included them in the DNA. In the discovery provided.
That's my thought, Mr. Green, just what Attorney Elkins just said. I mean, no one's stipulating that it's the car.
Right.
Either one of those videos.
And that was my concern. If we're, again, this is what I understood yesterday. I am stipulating that Detective Mazza went to a location, requested video from that location between the hours of midnight and 2 a.m., and he was provided with that video. That's all he can really, that's all he would be able to testify to in any event. So yes, I can stipulate to that.
So maybe work on the language. In the meantime, I have not looked at it. I'll take a look at it at the break.
Okay.
Hello, thank you for joining us.
You want to mark that for ID?
Is there anything else we need to chat about in terms of schedule? Anything else we need before the jury comes out?
I don't believe so. Just so the court's aware, I was able to push up the medical examiner, so I expect he'll be here this afternoon.
Okay.
So again, we are on a continued fast pace. And again, it's depending on how it goes, certainly potential that I would rest at some point later today.
It's your case. Thank you for the update, though. All right.
Want this marked?
I don't know if I need this. I don't even know if I even need the stipulation the way it's worded. I'll take it when it's signed. I'm not gonna help you negotiate the stipulation. You can. It sounds to me that there's agreement on that it's a picture or a frame or a video of a car at a particular time, period. That sounds like what it is to me.
Yes.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
And if we had difficulty, I just similarly have to recall Detective Mazza.
Which we were trying to avoid, but.
Trying to avoid. I mean, he is here and available.
I think that it's all he can say, I think.
Right.
But you can call, I'll let you recall him if you think you need to, all right?
Okay, thank
you. So, we ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Sounds good. We're all set.
It's sad because they're both so young and they have a young daughter. Let's mute them while we wait for the Hamilton, Carmen. If you guys get that song stuck in my head. But these attorneys seem like they argue over everything. Maybe it's just me, but I know, because I know a lot of attorneys argue. I know that's what they're supposed to do. I get it. But it just seems like these guys go back and forth over the same stuff. I just don't think it's going to work for him. Yeah, it's been, yes. And this trial's been one of the worst. And I get if judges don't want speaking objections, fine. But it's just constant. And they're not even objecting. They're just saying, can we approach, Your Honor? I'm like, no. Just say no. Just say no. I'm ignoring some of you over there, Chrissy. Carmen. Hamilton. Stop it. All right, well, this is crazy long. I'm not sure what this break was for. There we go. Oh, just kidding. Oh, I did hear the redhead attorney speak today. She does not stand in
All
them.
right, members of the jury, welcome back to the Hampden County Superior Court Courtroom 2 for the resumption of our trial. Again, thank you all for your service in this case. Thank you all for paying close attention to the witnesses and to me and to the lawyers. I've noted that as the process has gone forward, and it's greatly appreciated by me and the parties very much. Has any member of the jury had any difficulty whatsoever in strictly adhering to all my instructions that I gave you before we left for the day yesterday? Or do you know of anybody on the jury who has failed to adhere to those instructions strictly? I see no affirmative response. Has any member of the jury seen, heard, overheard, come across in any way or fashion whatsoever anything related to this case or pertaining to the subject matter of this case since we were last together yesterday afternoon? I see no affirmative response. Finally, does any member of our jury have any private matter or concern regarding your continued service as a trial juror in this case that you want to bring to my attention privately at this time? I see no affirmative response. The jury stands indifferent. We'll now resume with our trial. Attorney Green.
Thank you. Your Honor, the Commonwealth will call Mr. Scott Burns at this time.
So, excuse me, this is the guy that she was at. This is her coworker and the guy she was at the bar with and in the truck with.
Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you will give this court and jury in the case now on trial shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Please take the witness stand.
Is this hometown, Carmen?
May I?
Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Green.
Good morning, sir. If you want to scoot a little bit closer, that microphone will help everybody hear you. In a loud and clear voice, would you just introduce yourself to the jurors and by name and spell your last name, please?
Scott Burns, Burns.
And how old are you, sir?
33.
What town do you live in?
Southwick.
All right. And do you work, sir?
Yes.
Where do you work?
Jarvis Surgical.
And how long have you worked there?
10 years.
All right. I want to ask you some questions now, going back a few years to 2019. Did you know somebody by the name of Alexis Avery?
Yes.
And how did you know her initially?
She worked at Jarvis.
Okay. Do you know how long she had worked there?
I'd say about a year.
All right. And what was your relationship like with her during that year leading up to January of 2019?
I mean, we had spoke here and there, but that was kind of it. Just normal work stuff.
Okay. And on January 11th of 2019, it's a Friday night, did you end up going out to a couple of bars in Westfield?
Yes.
And prior to going out to those bars, had you communicated with Alexis Avery at all?
Yes.
And how did you do that? Like, what form of communication?
Snapchat.
Okay. And
This is the guy she was at the bar
do you
with.
remember if
Scott
that
Burns.
you made plans through Snapchat to meet at a certain time?
Yes. We made plans to go to the Maple Leaf.
And at that point in time, did you know anything about Alexis Avery's relationship status, or what you believe to be her relationship status?
I believe that I knew she was single.
And how did you know that? Or what made you believe that?
Through Facebook.
All right. And when you say Facebook, just describe what you mean.
I looked her up and saw that she was single on Facebook.
Okay. Under like the status or whatever?
Yes.
All right. And who contacted who first? Did she contact, who contacted who?
I'm not sure.
Okay. But in any event, you did have some communication that night through Snapchat.
Yes.
All right. And as a result of those conversations, did you go to a place in Westfield?
Yes.
Where did you go?
We went to the Maple Leaf.
All right. And are you familiar with that place?
Yes.
And did you go with anybody?
Yes, we went with a few people from work.
Okay. And was Alexis there?
Yes.
All right. Was she with anybody that you knew or met that night?
She was with her cousin.
All right. Do you remember her name by any chance?
I think it's Caitlin.
All right. And had you met Caitlin before that night?
No.
All right. So just describe what you and Alexis were doing, just kind of in general, what were you doing at the bar?
We were just hanging out, talking, hanging out with work friends.
Okay. Do you know approximately, again, it's a long time ago, what time you got to the Maple Leaf?
I would say
Yeah, he is
9:30.
Okay.
33.
And
They were 20 at the time.
while you were there, you mentioned that you were talking to Alexis. Did you call her, Lexi at that time? And how did she seem while you were having these talks and conversations with her?
She seemed, okay. I know she was kind of on the lookout for her ex-boyfriend.
How did you know that?
Just through talking to her.
Well, I don't know the answer. Ask it. It's sustained. Next question.
Is there something that led you to believe she was on the lookout for her ex?
Just through talking to her.
That's sustained. Okay.
Motion strike.
Stricken.
At some point while you were at the Maple Leaf, did things progress a little bit between you and Lexi?
Yes.
And just describe what you mean by that.
We just started flirting and we ended up kissing.
Okay. And where were you in the bar, if you remember?
I believe we were at the bar.
Okay. So you weren't like in the bathroom or in the hallway? Or in the open?
Yes.
Yeah. And did somebody else arrive at the bar that night, if you remember?
Just my work friends.
Mm-hmm. Did you know who Blake Scanlon was back then?
No.
Had you ever met him before?
No.
Do you know if he showed up at that bar, that first bar?
I don't believe he was at the Maple Leaf, no.
You don't recall seeing him there?
No.
At some point, did you go to another establishment that night?
Yes.
Where else did you go?
The Whip.
And whose idea was it to go over to the Whip?
I think it was a collective group decision.
Yourself and Lexi and Caitlin?
Yes.
So you kind of all knew where you were going next.
Yes.
And did you go over to the Whip?
Yes.
And again, approximately what time you might have gotten there?
I'm not sure.
Okay, that's fine. When you got to the Whip, did you see Lexi again?
Yes.
And just describe again how the night was progressing between you and Lexi.
We just kind of, kept flirting and kissing and hanging out at the bar.
So, if you know, who initiated like the flirting, or was it kind of more mutual?
I would say it's mutual.
All right. And was her cousin there at the second bar, if you know?
Yes.
Did anybody else arrive at the second bar that you know of?
Just the same work group that we were with.
All right. And again, do you recall seeing Mr. Scanlon at that bar?
I believe he was there at some point, yes.
All right. But again, you don't really know him, right?
Correct.
At some point in the evening, did you and Lexi go outside of the bar?
Yes.
And where did you go?
To my truck.
All right. Just briefly, what kind of truck was it? Just so we have an idea.
F-150.
All right. 2 doors, 4 doors?
4-door. Crew cab, I believe.
Okay. And when you went out into the truck, what happened?
We were continuing flirting and we ended up having sex.
Okay. Where were you in the truck? Just so I know. Front, back?
Back seat.
All right. And what happened as this was occurring?
The front driver's side door, or the front passenger side door opened.
And tell me what you saw.
There was a guy standing there. We kind of separated ourselves, and
You and Lexi.
correct.
And did the guy say anything?
Just to grab her stuff and to go.
Did he say anything to you specifically?
No, I do not think so.
All right. That person that opened the door to your truck, do you see him in the courtroom here today?
Objection, Your Honor.
Yes. Sorry.
Could you describe the demeanor of the person that opened the door? Like, just how was he acting?
Very calm.
Was his voice raised?
No.
And after that person said something like, "Get your stuff, let's go," what did Lexi do?
We kind of separated ourselves, and she started getting her stuff. She had said that, I didn't want to be with you. I wanted to be with him, which was me.
Who'd she say that to?
To Blake.
The person that was at the
Yes.
door?
That's the
And
scary.
did you see where they went after she got out of your truck?
I did not.
Okay.
That's the scary part.
Was there any sort of screaming or struggle between the two of them that you recall?
No.
All right.
What did you do after she left your truck?
I called for an Uber.
Okay. And why did you do that?
We had been drinking.
Do you recall approximately what time you called for that Uber?
I would say 1:15, 1:20ish.
Did you actually take a screenshot of your Uber receipt?
Yes.
All right. May I approach the witness?
Yes.
Right now. I'm going to show you this image. Don't describe it yet, just take a look at it and let me know if you recognize it.
Yes.
What do you recognize that image to be?
My Uber ride.
All right, a screenshot that you took of your phone with the Uber call on it.
Yes.
So is it fair to say you called for an Uber at 1:19?
Yes.
Thank you. I moved off this.
Objection.
No, without objection, maybe mark as the next exhibit. 45. You want it up, Mr. Green?
Not at this time, Robert. Without getting into specifics, did you try and contact Lexi the next day?
Yes.
And how did you do that? Do you remember what social media or how you did that?
Snapchat.
And did you get a response from her?
No.
At some point, did you learn that something had happened that night?
Eventually, yes.
Eventually, yes.
Neither one of them looked like much of a hider. But those little, I don't know, not saying anything.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. I don't have any other questions, Your Honor.
It's really short.
Good morning.
We could have done that. Becky. You're correct.
I'm not going to ask you to repeat very much of what AA Green asked you about, but I do have a few questions for you. So just to be clear, you and Alexis had not been out any kind of date or relationship or anything like that prior to that night. That was the first night that you.
That was the first night that we hung out.
Okay. And I just want to hone right into the most, probably for you, difficult and uncomfortable part, and I'm sorry about that, but just to go over a couple of things. So your truck that you and Alexis went to at the whip, and you were having sex in. That was a Ford F-150 crew cab. Is that correct?
I believe it was crew cab, yes.
And so you had been together and being intimate for a few minutes by that point, about 10 minutes, I think.
About 10 minutes.
Okay, and so you were in the act, and the front passenger side door opened, correct?
Yes.
And at that point in time, Mr. Scanlon immediately said, "Get your things, let's go." Is that fair to
Yep.
say? So in that moment, it's fair to say that you and Alexis immediately reacted and stopped doing what you were doing, correct?
Yes.
And I presume immediately you started getting yourself together, and you got out of the truck?
I don't believe I got out of the truck.
Okay, so you stayed in the back seat, correct?
Yes.
And Alexis also had to get herself together, is that fair to say?
Yes.
And so she had to gather up her personal belongings, correct?
Yes.
And get herself somewhat dressed, correct?
Yep.
And you guys weren't all the way undressed. You were just undressed enough to do what you were doing, correct? So Blake opened the door and he said, "Let's go." You're getting yourself together, and Alexis immediately gathers her things. Does she immediately get out of the truck?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And in that moment, as she's getting out of the truck, is she out of the truck when she says to Blake, "I don't want to be with you, I want to be with him," meaning you?
I don't remember.
But you definitely heard her say that.
Yes.
And she definitely said it to Blake, correct? Okay. Now, in that moment, once she was out of the car, and Blake was already out of the car, of course, you couldn't, you heard them speaking aggressively to each other. That's what you told police. Do you recall that?
I don't recall.
Okay. But it's fair to say they were continuing to talk and you could hear them, correct?
I'm not sure that I heard their conversation.
Well, let me ask you this. I'm not asking for, you couldn't hear what they were saying except for that you just testified to, but you could hear that they were speaking to each other. Is that fair to say?
I would say that's fair to say.
Okay. And you couldn't hear exactly what they were saying, and it wasn't screaming and yelling, but it was aggressive and argumentative. Is that fair to say?
I really don't, I'm not sure that it was aggressive.
Argumentative?
Maybe that's fair to say.
That's fair to say? Okay. Now, just to go back to that moment, so you stayed in the back seat. At some point, obviously, you got out of the truck, correct?
At some point. Probably,
And
yes.
they were already gone
Yes.
by that point? And it's fair to say you didn't stay in the back seat of your truck very long at all.
I just waited for my Uber.
Okay. You waited in the back seat of your car for the Uber?
I'm not sure exactly where I was waiting for the Uber.
Okay. And you ordered that Uber at 1:19 a.m. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And at the point that you ordered the Uber, that was Blake and Alexis had already left.
Correct.
Right, so they weren't standing outside your truck still talking.
No.
So the period of time that you had to hear and observe anything, well, to observe Blake directly was the moment he opened the door, and for a few seconds after Alexis got out of the truck, fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, and then at that point, you really couldn't hear and you didn't see where they went.
Correct.
And fair to say that was an upsetting situation for you as well?
Yeah.
Okay, and so in the moment, you're making the decision to go home. You don't make plans to go back in the bar to check in with the friend that you came with, correct?
Correct.
Okay, you just immediately order up that Uber, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and Now, you testified just a bit ago that you were under the impression that Alexis was single. Is that
Yes.
fair to say? Now, and that, do you remember speaking to police in this case?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you spoke to police, you, sorry, just one second.
So when they get close on the defendant, if you look at his cheek, he's got this little thing that spots it's pulsing in and out. I know somebody else that does that when they get really mad, and then I know she's really mad, Carmen. You just know she's mad.
As you may have gathered, our rules provide that before a witness is shown something, the lawyers have to show it to each other so that they're all on the same page. So that's what's happening. That's our rules.
So you testified, sorry, no, proceed. You testified that you were under the impression that Alexis was single, based on what you saw of her Facebook.
Yes.
Okay. Do you recognize this picture?
Yes.
Okay, and what is that?
That is one of Alexis's Facebook profiles.
Okay, and is this the one that you looked at and led you to believe that she was single?
There was two of them. I'm not sure exactly based on these pictures which one it was.
Actually. So, but this is one of the Facebook pages, correct?
Yes.
And you took a screenshot of that and you gave that to police when you spoke to them to
Yes.
explain your part of what happened that night.
Mhm.
Okay. And this is, and
Roseanne.
the name of this is Alexis Avery. That's the Facebook profile name, correct?
Yes.
I offer this into, as an exhibit.
No objection.
Objection.
46. 46. 46.
Thank you.
Now, when you were talking to police, you also mentioned that you later learned that Alexis had a second Facebook page
Yeah.
under a different name. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that name was Alexis Vasquez, correct?
Yes.
Do you recognize this?
Yes.
And what is that?
That is another Facebook profile.
Okay.
Alexis.
And is that a screenshot from your phone that you provided to police?
I don't. I don't know that that is my phone.
Do you remember providing, talking to police about looking at Alexis's Facebook pages
Yes.
and learning that she had a second Facebook page?
Mhm.
And do you remember that you, in that interview, or,
We need a yes or no answer, sir.
Yes.
and do you remember providing screenshots of those Facebook profiles in your interview with police, correct?
Yes.
And that last picture was from your phone, correct?
The previous one, yes.
Yes, okay. And this was taken also from your phone. Is that the same phone?
That doesn't look like my phone.
So these were both provided in your interview with police. They're not the same phone?
It's tough for me to tell. I can see the top up here. Doesn't look like my phone.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Is this a fair and accurate depiction of the Facebook profile that of the second Facebook profile that you found?
Yes.
Okay.
I was going to say, is it a phone? May not be yours, but just is it a phone?
And in this profile, that Facebook photo in that profile, that says that she was in a relationship with Blake Scanlon. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that's how you learned that she was in a relationship with Blake Scanlon at the time.
Yes.
Or that,
If you could just keep your voice up a little bit, please, you're trailing off.
or that her Facebook profile still said that she was in a relationship with Blake
Yes.
Scanlon. And that led you to, let me do this. You recognize that picture?
Yes.
Okay, and what is that?
It's a picture of Alexis, her boyfriend, and her child.
Okay, and that picture is from the second Facebook page, is that correct?
I would say so, yes.
Okay. Does that look like a fair and accurate depiction of a picture from Miss Avery's Facebook profile?
Yes.
Okay. That's supposed to be admitted?
No objection.
He should object. She objects to everything. Her cousin said she changed it that night before they went out.
That I did, but I'm offering this as evidence as well.
I guess she missed a page. Just her other page.
Objection. 47, 47, 48.
And when you learned what had happened to Alexis and before you came in to speak with police, you found that Facebook profile that said she was in a relationship with Blake Scanlon, and that led you to also see if Mr. Scanlon had a Facebook page. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
And in that process, you also found that Mr. Scanlon had a Facebook page.
Yes.
Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And what is that?
That is Blake Scanlon's Facebook profile.
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of the profile that you saw at the time of the incident?
Yes.
Offer this.
Mr. Drake.
All right, I'm not condoning cheating or anything like that, but she was a young, pretty girl. Do you think he really cared if she was in a relationship with somebody? I know she's got to try to make some inroads here because she doesn't really have any. But he was out. He was at a bar. He was drinking. We all kind of know what happens.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. Just 1 second. There's no.
Can I see you guys on this for a second, though?
Well, sidebar. Sorry, if I would have known that was coming up, I wouldn't have paused it and I would have just said what I had to say right here. Yes, you're correct. In her eyes, they were not together, so she wasn't cheating. In his eyes, he wanted to be together, so she was cheating, but that's just not what the defense was trying to put up there. That was quick. And even if she was cheating, it's no reason to pass her away.
Without objection.
Just to close out, you had to come back the next morning to get your truck?
Yes.
Okay, and what time did you come get your truck?
I want to say it was around 9:30 break that we have at work.
Okay. And,
That is an unfortunate close-up.
do you recognize this?
Yes.
And
Yeah,
what is
definitely
that?
not his
That is
fault.
a message that I sent to her Snapchat.
Okay. And what time, when is that dated?
1:49 a.m.
Okay. And on January 12th, the morning, January 12th?
Yes, that would be.
Okay. And is this a fair and accurate depiction of the message that you sent?
Yes.
Okay.
John, maybe you heard us saying about that.
Hmm. See if I can get this. We'll just jump ahead while they talk about it. Oh, Gabby. You might regret that decision. I do feel bad for the guy. I imagine he feels really guilty. Man, this is a long one.
Okay, we're going to take a recess now, early recess. Jurors, keep your notebooks and pens in your chairs, and keep all my instructions that I've given you firmly in mind. We'll have you right back in here after the morning recess.
I don't know that I would ever believe it, Judge. 5 minutes, we'll have you right back in here. I don't think we've ever seen that
Sit
happen.
down, I want to have a conversation.
Nope, he must have a conversation. Dad wants to talk to the children.
So let's flesh out the conversation we had about this cooling off period. What do you want to use this document for to show that there was a lack of a cooling off period between what we now have evidence from a couple, we have this witness who has testified that they were interrupted in the back seat of his personal car by your client opening the door and basically breaking into the car. So, and seeing something and then getting in a car and driving away. How does this document that you showed me relate to a cooling off period after what occurred?
Well, under the case law, if the instruction is given, then it becomes a question of fact for the jury as to whether or not there was sufficient time to cool off. We have we have a timeline that is getting home happened very quickly once they left there. That's what these videos are about. And then we have a timeline that related to the last text between Kaylin and Alexis. And this text that we're talking about came right in the middle of those last texts between Caitlin and Alexis. or between Caitlin and Alexis' phone. So it's a question of fact for the jury as to what was going on within the home at that period, during that period of time. It's also somewhat a question of fact of whether or not messages back were statements of Mr. Scanlon or of Alexis. So there are just lots of questions of fact about this period of time. And then there's a determination, depending on how you instruct the jury.
But if this is a private message between Alexis Avery and Mr. Burns, how does that relate to what is going on in Mr. Scanlon's mind? How are you going to show, how are you going to connect it up that he knew about what was in her phone unless he has it in his hands?
Well, I think the Commonwealth is going to argue just that.
Right.
Right,
but he'd have it in his hands like after she's deceased. You can't have it both ways.
I think the Commonwealth has already asked questions, and they may not argue this, but I have to be prepared if they are. And Mr. Scanlon's entitled to the defense if they are, but that as early as those last text exchanges between
if you're trying to use electronic media text between Ms. Avery and whoever, her friend, her cousin, or this individual, you have to have some evidence that those texts or messages were seen by Mr. Scanlon in order to even possibly have it be involved in a heat of passion argument. And what's going to be the evidence of that? That's my question.
I'm suggesting that the Commonwealth is already going down the road of suggesting that text messages to Caitlin within 1 minute of this were in fact sent by Mr. Scanlon, and they're going to hinge on that based on messages that were sent the next day when they clearly were.
Right, but the theory is that he had her phone because she was deceased. That's the theory. It's not the theory that he had her phone and they were hanging around in the apartment. Like I'm going to step off and let you think about it, but I made my ruling on that particular document. But now I'm trying to grasp what your theory is
You are, lady.
on this, so I can at least because once I understand that, I can have a better understanding as to what evidentiary rulings might be. So yes, Mr. Green.
Sorry to interrupt, Attorney Green, if you could just.
Yes, again, just to point out, Mr. Burns said that these were snap messages, which have, again, we don't know.
Evidence of that. I have a very, very personal limited knowledge of Snapchat, but
Me too, but
no evidence of that yet. So what happens to snap messages?
no, but he said he sent this via snap,
Right.
whatever that means.
Right.
But again, I'm not sure how this is relevant to the defendant's state of mind. We have no idea if he opened to that snap and saw this. And furthermore, as far as the new case law recent goes on heat of passion, words alone don't equate to a provocative moment. So even if,
Well, that's lurking in the background here, but it's the trial, so we're going to let defense counsel explore what she can explore to see if she can develop some evidence to make that argument. But I mean, there's no. He sent this snap. Is there going to be any evidence that it was opened or viewed, or is there any electronic evidence that it was sent and seen, or not? Like we have a lot of
In the heat of passion.
kind of factual issues here. He can say he sent it. Certainly, you can get that on cross-examination, but to argue that anybody opened that and saw it is without some kind of forensic evidence of analysis of the phone. I don't know where we're going to get that either. So I'm going to step off. Okay.
All right.
Go to the bathroom, okay? Well, the evidence that somebody opened a Snapchat would be on their Snapchat when it would say opened. Obviously, those messages would be long gone by now, unless can you set it to never delete them? Because I know you can change the time on them too, so they stay longer. But I don't know if you could set it Snapchat to where the message is never delete. Carmen, you were the officer in the Haley Brown trial whose body camera we were watching, and it was like we were on a boat. But I knew that would be you. It would also be me. But I don't wear body cams. I don't wear any cams. Hello, dear. Yes, this is not a normal voice feed. But this trial's going to wrap up tomorrow, so I needed to get it in tonight.
All right, is there anything further before we bring him back in? Okay, so why don't we we'll bring him back in. Somebody needs to get Mr. Burns. Yeah, me too. Mr. Cauliflores, can you grab Mr. Burns, please?
We need Mr. Burns back.
Hamilton, if her forehead scares you, I can't imagine what mine does, because I could advertise on this thing. That's what who said. Whoa, that sounds like somebody bit the dust. You know when they say, "Are you okay?" and you hear, "Yep," they're not, and they fell down. Or they really hit something hard. I wonder if that. Well, thank you. Oh my. I'm telling you, if you guys are watching this on replay and you're not reading the chat, you're just going to think I'm a loon. I haven't seen one. Just, oh crap, I'm in trouble. I, Carmen, I thought from the side, he looks like a woman. So no, it's not just you. Wasn't gonna call him that. He looks feminine.
You marked that for ID, Bill, that last document.
Yeah, that was at 10:03.
But if you guys caught that argument, she's trying to get in heat of passion. Judge doesn't sound like he's buying it. She's tipped her hand now to the state because she's saying he's already brought it in. I don't think the judge is thinking that
All right, we're
either.
ready to resume with the examination of Mr. Burns.
Oh, no, he's going to be able to do it.
Can I have you look at that while I ask you a couple more questions? So after you Ubered home that early morning on January 12th, you sent Alexis a Snapchat. Is that correct?
Correct.
And in that Snapchat, you said that you didn't want to get involved in her family drama and anything in between her and her boyfriend. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
So you said that under the impression that what had just happened was that you had been caught with somebody else's girlfriend.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustain. That's a stank, you don't have to answer that.
But at any rate, by the time you sent this Snapchat, you believed Alexis had a boyfriend.
At that point, I wasn't sure.
And the word you used in here, though, was boyfriend, correct?
Right.
Okay. No further questions.
All right, Mr. Green?
I know nothing about Snapchats. Can you tell if somebody opens a Snapchat from your end?
Yes.
Do you know if that Snapchat was opened?
At some point, yes.
Do you know when?
I believe it was Sunday.
Okay, but not that night.
No.
Thank you.
Bad question, because he just came in and
Thank you very much, Mr. Burns. Your excuse.
when was it open? Sunday? Oh, you mean after she was gone? Oopsies.
Your Honor, may we just approach with a document?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, they are there. That's why they're approaching again, Hamilton. I think they're just trying to get their steps in.
I don't know if it's technically my job, but I make it my job. Okay, I have a. Parties are offering a stipulation which will be marked as the next exhibit. I need to provide you with an instruction on that. The Commonwealth and the defendant have agreed to or stipulated to certain facts in this case, which Mr. Green will in a few moments read to you. This stipulation is signed by Mr. Green and Attorney Elkins for the defendant, and also by the defendant, and marked as an exhibit. A stipulation of fact leaves those facts no longer at issue and must be accepted by you, the jury, as true. Okay? It's now been marked. Mr. Green, if you would please read that for us into the record.
So marked exhibit 50.
50, 50.
Your Honor, reading from Exhibit 50 at this time. The following are stipulations of fact. 1, an autopsy was performed on Alexis Avery, date of birth, April 20, 1998, by Dr. Robert Welton of the Massachusetts Office of Chief Medical Examiner on January 15, 2019. A sample of the victim's blood was obtained during the autopsy to be used in later DNA testing. That known blood sample of Alexis Avery was released to Detective Rick Mazza of the Westfield Police Department on that same day, January 15, 2019. He then transported that sample to the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory located on Corando Drive in Springfield, Massachusetts, where it was taken into secure storage and added to laboratory case number 19-01217 and assigned a specific designation number, item 7-1. Stipulation 2. On October 30, 2019, Trooper Jason Cristofori collected a voluntary saliva sample from Blake Scanlon, date of birth 2/9/1995, to be used for later DNA testing, comparison, and analysis. Trooper Cristofori is trained in the proper procedures and handling of DNA saliva collection methods. Stipulation 3. Later that same day, on October 30th, 2019, Trooper Cristofori hand-delivered the known saliva sample of Blake Scanlon to the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory, again located on Corando Drive in Springfield, where it was taken into secure storage and added to laboratory case number 19-01217 and assigned specific designation number 9-1. Stipulation 4. G.L. Yoon is a properly trained and certified forensic scientist with the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab, assigned to the DNA analysis section. On August 29th of 2019, forensic scientist Yoon was able to obtain a DNA profile from the known blood sample of Alexis Avery, which is item 7-1, and on November 25, 2019, forensic scientist Yoon was able to obtain a DNA profile from the known saliva sample of Blake Scanlon, item 9-1. Stipulation 5, and this is the last one. On September 28th of 2020, the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory delivered additional items to Bodie Technology in Lorton, Virginia, which is a certified and licensed outside vendor DNA lab. Nicholas Bradford is a senior DNA analyst employed by Bodie Technology. Mr. Bradford is properly trained and certified to analyze DNA samples, profiles, and draw conclusions. Specifically, DNA analyst Bradford was able to compare State Police Item 7 from Alexis Avery's left hand to the known DNA profiles of Alexis Avery and Blake Scanlon. DNA analyst Bradford authored a report on December 2, 2020, in which he concluded that, quote, the DNA profile obtained from MSP item 7-1-09 is consistent with a mixture of two individuals, including Alexis Avery and one male contributor. The foreign DNA profile matches the DNA profile received for Blake Scanlon. Thank you, Your Honor. I'll hand this back to Mr. Clerk. And with that, I would call Elance Dowling to you.
Actually, that one was me. Long time. I'll own it.
Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you will give this court and jury in the case now on trial shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Thank you. Please take the witness stand.
This one that judge looked up that coffee cup. I thought it was a milk.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning, Your Honor.
Could you please, just speak into the microphone and introduce yourself to the jurors by telling them your first and last name and spelling your last name, please.
My name is Iman Sadoughi, Sadoughi.
Thank you, sir. And are you employed?
Yes, I am.
By whom?
I am employed by the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab under the Department of State Police. I work in the criminalistics unit, and I'm also a member of our crime scene response unit.
How long have you worked in that capacity, sir?
I have been employed since January of 2015.
All right. And just can you briefly describe your educational background for the jurors?
I have a bachelor's degree in biology and a master's degree in forensic science, both of which I obtained from Towson, Maryland.
Thank you. And could you just describe your general responsibilities in the criminalistics and crime scene response unit?
With regards to the criminalistics unit, I examine physical evidence to determine the presence or absence of biological fluids, such as blood, semen, or saliva, and perform the initial classification of trace materials, such as hairs or fibers. Based on the requirements set by our protocols to establish forensic links and or positive testing results, I will then prepare samples for other units within the lab, such as our DNA unit or our arson and trace analysis unit.
Thank you.
Based on,
Go ahead.
then based on my findings and my collections, I will prepare a report, and when requested of me, I will testify in court. With regards to the crime scene response unit responsibilities, I respond to mostly the western region of Massachusetts. When I arrive, I obtain basic information from investigators as to what they believe may have transpired, if they have any requests, and then I will begin my examination of the crime scene. This could be a residence, it could be a vehicle, motorcycle, or it could be a subject. I will then document my notes and my observations using diagrams and on pages. I will perform testing as necessary, perform collection as necessary, and then I will transport the evidence back to our crime lab where I will submit it into our laboratory management system. Finally, I will author a report for my scene response, and when requested of me, I will testify in court.
Thank you, sir. And have you testified before in Massachusetts?
Yes, I have.
Could you estimate perhaps how many times?
Approximately 15 times.
Okay. And are there certain, before you can perform field work, do you have to pass certain tests, company tests and proficiency tests?
Yes, there are.
Could you explain those to the jurors, please?
Competency test is administered at the end of training. I received an extensive on-the-job training for approximately 1 year. The competency was to, it had a written portion and a lab portion. It was to determine that I can follow the protocols and obtain expected results on mock evidence. It also has a written portion to understand the theoretical testing behind what I was performing. Did you also mention proficiency tests?
I did. If you could just explain those as well.
And proficiency tests are administered periodically. Those are to test my ability for continued competency over the years as I'm employed. And I have successfully done all of those tests.
Thank you. Have you in fact responded to crime scenes in your role as a forensic scientist?
Yes, I have.
Could you estimate perhaps how many?
Approximately 250 crime scenes or responses. Out of those 250, approximately 50 where I responded as a training analyst.
Thank you. And have you worked in the criminalistic section on preparing samples for DNA testing?
Yes, I have.
And could you estimate perhaps how many times you've worked on samples for that?
Samples or items are in the thousands. I wouldn't have an exact number.
Okay, thank you. I want to direct your attention now specifically to your work in this particular case. Were you assigned to be a crime scene response person in this matter?
Yes.
And were you also responsible for some criminalistics testing in this matter?
Yes.
All right. And well, I think we mentioned this, but are all investigations within your laboratory assigned a specific laboratory designation number?
Yes, they are.
All right. And I know it's been a long time. Do you happen to recall that lab number offhand?
The lab number for the case that we are here today is 19-01217.
All right. And then could you just describe for the jurors, so that's the overriding number?
That is the number that we use internally. All the testing, any crime scene responses by me or any other analyst, including our sworn members assigned to the crime lab, is done under this case number.
All right. And as items are submitted in this particular investigation, are they given a further distinctive identifying number?
Yes, they are. At the time of submission, each item will be assigned a specific item number. Those item numbers will follow our sub-designation of the submission. So each time someone submits evidence for this case, that will be, let's say, submission, for example, 4. Every item under that submission 4 will be a 4-1, 4-2, 4-3. So those sub numbers will be assigned after that 4 until all the items that are being submitted are entered into the system, and then our electronic system, computer management system will then track custody and any other testing results and reports along for those items.
Thank you, sir. And did you in fact respond to 92 White Street in Westfield on January 13th of 2019?
Yes, I did.
And do you recall approximately what time you may have gotten there?
It was in the afternoon.
All right. And what was your role when you arrived at the location?
I was briefed on the investigation that was taking place. I was informed which apartment within this residence I would be processing, and then along with working with our crime scene services section, we determined the plan, placed the plan in place, and we went in and processed the residence in apartment 2 for various testing and collection of physical evidence.
Thank you. Before you enter into a crime scene, are there certain measures you do to protect the scene or limit contamination?
It does vary slightly based on scenes, but we would, put booties on to, we would wear gloves and be mindful of where we are stepping, where we are moving things from to minimize any contamination or alteration of the scene until it is processed and completed.
So specifically at 92 White Street, did you go up to the second floor apartment?
Yes.
Did you make observations in the kitchen area?
Yes, I did.
And just generally, what were your initial observations in the kitchen?
In the kitchen area, I observed various items along with a deceased individual identified to me as Alexis Avery. I observed to the left side of her blankets, pillows, a knife, a glass cup. There were other additional items in the kitchen, including cigarette butts, plastic trash cans, or trash bags, excuse me. Additionally, I made documentation of Alexis Avery and noticed that she had several injuries to her stomach area, back, neck, and face. In addition to that, I documented that she was wearing a pink hooded sweatshirt that was partially pulled up, black leggings, and a pair of mismatched socks.
Thank you. And as far as evidence that you often describe as red-brown stains, can you tell me what you're looking for when you observe these red-brown stains in a location?
There were red-brown stains throughout the apartment based on the number of bleeders, and then looking at the stains themselves to separate them by size, shape, distribution, and also location. I would then proceed with designating them with a letter and proceeding with our screening test for blood. All of these stains would be documented in my notes or diagrams as I'm processing them, and the testing results would then be performed and documented as well. Once the tests are complete, and I believe that if the test is positive for the screening test for the presence of blood, I will then use swabs, which are Q-tips essentially, and I will moisten them with water and collect those red-brown stains for further testing back at the lab.
Thank you. And I just want to ask you, go back a little bit. You mentioned a screening test for the presence of blood. Is that correct?
Yes.
And just describe for the jurors what you mean by screening tests.
Screening tests are tests that we perform initially on evidence where we suspect biological materials. We have them for blood and semen. For blood specifically, at the time we were using the orthotolidine test. This test is used, it was done by taking a filter paper, rubbing a portion of it against a suspected blood stain, which we call red-brown stains, and then adding 2 chemicals. If an immediate blue color developed, then that would be a positive result for a screening test for blood. As I have been saying, screening tests, these tests are not confirmatory. They are known to have false positives, but they are a preliminary result that we can use in order to then collect them and perform, if not limited, additional testing back at the lab.
Thank you. And in this particular investigation at 92 White Street, is it fair to say there were many, many red-brown stains?
Yes.
And you performed screening tests on a large number of those items?
I performed screening tests on approximately 33 stains.
All right. And did you take some of those stains back to your laboratory?
Based on positive results, I did then perform collection on those stains.
And back at the laboratory, do you perform a confirmatory test for blood?
I will, once this is assigned in the criminalistics unit, I will then reevaluate the case, as there could be hundreds of pieces of evidence to look at. I will then determine the most forensically relevant items, and I will go through and examine those. Out of the many swabs I did collect and transport back, or even other items, I selected some of those stains or the swabs from those stains for further testing, which is the confirmatory testing for blood.
All right. And so just a couple of specific items. There was a suitcase in the kitchen, is that correct? The suitcase tag?
The suitcase was in the storage area within the apartment, not in the kitchen.
Did you perform confirmatory testing on the red-brown stains on that item?
I did.
And what was the result, if you recall?
Testing for the presence of blood was positive, indicating the presence of human blood.
Did you perform or did you collect a red-brown stain from the kitchen floor between the legs of Miss Avery?
Yes, I did.
Did you perform confirmatory testing on that swab?
Yes, I did.
And what was the result?
Testing for the presence of blood was positive on the mentioned stain between Alexis Avery's legs on the ground, on the floor, indicating the presence of human blood.
Did you perform or did you collect a swab from a knife on the kitchen floor next to a blanket, which was labeled as placard 8?
I did. There were several stains that I did further testing. I would need to refer to my notes my report for all of that.
May he refer to his report, Your Honor?
Recollection?
Yes. Thank you. Can you repeat your question, please?
Certainly, and I'm referring to item 2-49. Did you perform any testing on a kitchen knife or a knife that was recovered from that residence?
Yes, I did.
Could you describe the testing you performed on that item?
I documented any visible staining on the knife. I then designated stains A through E. I performed testing on those items, on those areas. A screening test for the presence of stain E was positive. However, human blood was not detected. A testing for the presence of blood on stains A through D was positive, indicating the presence of human blood.
Thank you. And item 2-50. This was another knife that was located on scene. Did you perform testing on that particular item?
Yes, I did.
Could you describe the results of the testing on that particular item?
Testing for the presence of blood was positive on stains A to C, indicating the presence of human blood.
Thank you. Now, how do you prepare those samples for further DNA testing?
For non-porous items such as a knife, I would then use additional sterile swabs, moistening them with water, and collecting that stain for further testing. I would snippet a portion of the swabs, so a portion gets retained indefinitely at our lab for additional testing, and a portion that will be sent to our DNA unit if those items are requested by me for DNA testing.
At some point, did you have an opportunity to take swabs from Blake Scanlon?
Yes, I did.
All right. And did you take swabs from Mr. Scanlon's hands?
I did.
All right. And both left and right?
Yes.
And did you perform screening or confirmatory testing for blood on those items?
When I responded initially to the crime scene at 92 White Street, I was then redirected to the Westfield Police Department, where I met with Mr. Scanlon and I processed him for the presence of biological fluids. At that time, I performed screening tests for areas that had visible red-brown staining. I then collected swabs from those areas and I transported them back to the crime lab, where they will then further test it in our lab for confirmatory tests for blood. Those areas were his right-hand fingernails, left-hand fingernails. I had swabs of red-brown stains from top and palm sides of his left hand, top and palm side of his right hand, and also red-brown stains from the bottom of each of his feet.
Thank you. I want to ask you just a few more questions about the two knives that you processed. So item 2-49. You mentioned that you swabbed different areas of that knife.
Correct.
Could you describe in as much detail as you can where you swabbed that knife and how you did that?
I collected from the various stains, and if I also additionally collected from handles, if I was able to also separate the stains from the unstained areas. In some instances, it is practically not possible to separate the unstained areas from stained areas, so those were collected together.
Were you able to swab that particular item, both the blade and the handle portion?
Yes.
All right. And as far as item 2-50, again, this was another knife with red-brown stains. Were you able to swab the blade and the handle of that item as well?
Correct. Yes, I did.
All right. Did you prepare those samples for further DNA testing and analysis?
Yes, I did.
And did you prepare the samples that you collected from Mr. Scanlon's fingernails for further DNA testing and analysis?
I did.
All right. And it's not your job to do the comparative analysis, correct?
No, it is not.
All right. Thank you, sir. I have no further questions.
No questions for this witness.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
Wow,
You're
no
excused.
questions.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Saman Salam at this time.
I don't know what she would have asked him. Is he tired, or does he just not want to look anywhere?
Stand right here, face the clerk, raise your right hand.
Solemnly swear that the evidence you will give this court and jury in the case now on trial shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please take the witness stand.
Good morning.
Good morning.
If you could just speak into the microphone and introduce yourself to the jurors by telling them your name and spelling your last name, please.
My name is Saman Salim, Saleem.
Thank you. And are you employed?
Yes, I am.
By whom?
I'm employed by the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab in their DNA unit as a forensic scientist 3, which is a supervisory position.
How long have you been employed in total in the state lab?
I've been there about 8.5 years.
Okay. And Can you just briefly describe what you mean by scientist 3 versus 1 or 2?
Yeah, so scientist 3 is a supervisory position within the DNA unit, which means that I conduct DNA testing on evidence items that are submitted to the crime lab. I also supervise and train other analysts that are hired newly within the DNA unit at the crime lab.
Thank you. Can you just briefly tell the jurors what your educational background is?
Sure. I have a bachelor's of science in biochemistry from Boston College and a master's of science in forensic science from Boston University.
Thank you. In order to perform the work that you do you have to receive any sort of specialized training?
Yes, when I was first hired at the State Police Crime Lab in their DNA unit, for the first 8 months, I went through a training program. During this time, I received instruction on the theoretical knowledge of DNA testing. I also tested samples, mock samples in the laboratory to learn how to test them practically for future casework.
Thank you. And are you familiar with the term competency test?
Yes.
Could you describe what that means for the jurors, please?
A competency test is a two-part exam that is given at the end of your training. The first part is a written or an oral exam that tests your theoretical knowledge of the testing you're about to perform. And the second part is a practical exam where you test mock samples in the laboratory and you're graded on if you're able to follow the protocols and procedures appropriately.
Thank you. Did you pass those competency tests?
Yes, I have.
And
No.
could you describe and distinguish what a proficiency test is, please?
A proficiency test is an exam we're given twice a year as DNA analysts as required by the FBI quality assurance standards. This ensures that we continue to perform the work that we're doing on casework with proficiency. These tests are given to us by an external agency where we process samples in the laboratory as we would for real casework. We do not know the answers to these samples that we are given. We are then graded by the external agency whether or not we received the correct DNA profile on these samples.
Have you taken those exams as well?
Yes, I have.
Have you passed those?
Yes, I have.
And could you estimate how many times you've been assigned to work as a DNA analyst on particular investigations or items?
I've tested over 3,000 samples. I can't remember the exact number of cases that I've worked on, though.
And have you testified before regarding your conclusions in your DNA role testing?
Yes, I have testified all over Massachusetts in different counties, which include Suffolk, Essex, Middlesex, Hampden, Berkshire, Plymouth, Worcester.
Thank you. And so this is the million-dollar question. Everybody's heard the term DNA, but can you just give a kind of high-level explanation for all of us to understand what is DNA?
Sure. DNA is an acronym that stands for deoxyribonucleic acids. It is the genetic blueprint of all living things. We inherit half our DNA from our mother and half our DNA from our father. Each person has a unique DNA profile, and no two people will have the same DNA profile except for identical twins that have the same DNA.
Thank you. And could you just generally explain the process you use to interpret DNA results and analysis?
Sure. In our laboratory, we process all our evidence through a 4-step process. The first step is known as extraction. During extraction, we break open the cells in which the DNA is found. So these could be blood cells, skin cells, saliva cells that are present on the evidence item. We break them open using heat and chemicals to extract the DNA from these cells. Think of it as similar to breaking open an egg and extracting or separating the yolk from it. The second step is known as quantitation. During this step, we just determine how much DNA is present in the sample, and we need to know this to be able to move on to the third step. The third step is known as amplification or polymerase chain reaction, PCR for short. During this step, we make millions and millions of copies of the DNA just so that the instrumentation we use, we can actually use it to visualize the DNA profile. During this step, we particularly target 27 different locations on your DNA that are known to be found in all human beings, but they're also known to be different in all human beings, so we can generate a profile that's unique to an individual. And the last step is the analysis and interpretation, where we use instrumentation to visualize the DNA profile or characteristics at these 27 locations, and then do an interpretation to determine if they're suitable for comparison.
Thank you. Does the DNA unit in your laboratory follow any sort of standardized protocols and procedures?
Yes, we have standard protocols and procedures that we follow to do these 4 steps in the laboratory for all samples.
Does your work undergo any sort of review process?
All the work within the DNA unit goes through a 2-step review process. The first step is a technical review. During this review process, another qualified analyst who has the same or higher qualification than me will review the work to make sure that all the protocols and procedures were followed properly and the interpretation that I have made on the DNA profile is accurate based on our protocols. And the second step is an administrative review, where another analyst will review the case file for administrative errors such as pagination, spelling mistakes, as such.
Thank you. Is the State Police Crime Laboratory in which you work accredited?
Yes, we are accredited by ANSI, National Accreditation Board.
Thank you. Now I'm going to ask you some questions specifically about what you did in this case, directing your attention to laboratory number 19-01217. Is that the correct designation for this investigation?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. And in this particular investigation, there were a large number of items submitted. Is that correct?
Yes.
Could you just briefly describe for the jurors what the difference between a known item is and a questioned item?
Sure. A question item, or also referred to an evidence item, is an item that has been that has a DNA profile from which we don't know the source of. So we are trying to determine who this DNA profile belongs to. A known standard or known item is where we know the where that DNA profile came from. So it is collected from an individual. So example, I can collect my own saliva, and then when I develop that profile from that sample, I will know that that DNA profile belongs to me because I've collected the sample for myself.
And in this particular case, did you have known DNA profiles to use in your further interpretations?
Yes, I did.
And what were those known profiles?
I had known profiles for Blake Scanlon and Alexis Avery.
Thank you. And are you able then to compare those known profiles to questioned or evidentiary items?
Yes.
And do you use statistics to assist you in making that determination?
Yes. So once we can after we've done a comparison to those 2 different DNA profiles to determine if they're consistent with each other, we can do a statistical analysis to add weight to that piece of evidence, to that comparison that we have just done to show that how rare that profile is in comparison to the world's population.
Thank you. Now I'm going to ask you specifically, did you do a DNA analysis comparison work on item 2-15.1?
Yes, I did.
And do you recall what that item was?
May I refer to my notes?
Your Honor?
Fresh in recollection, yes.
Thank you.
That was the swab of a red stain on the tag of a suitcase.
And were you able to obtain a DNA profile from that item?
Yes, I was able to obtain a male DNA profile from that item.
And what conclusions were you able to draw from that profile you developed?
That profile, Blake Scanlon matches this profile. The expected frequency of occurrence of this profile is approximately 1 in 127.7 decillion unrelated individuals. And Alexis Avery does not match this profile.
And for those of us who don't know what a decillion is, can you just try and explain what that statistic means, please?
Sure. A decillion is a 1 followed by 33 zeros. As a comparison, if you know a million is 1 followed by just 6 zeros.
And do you know the approximate overall population of people on Earth?
It's approximately 8 billion, or 8 followed by 9 zeros.
Thank you. Did you perform testing on item 2-19.1?
Yes, I did.
And what item was that, if you know?
That was the swab of a red-brown stain also from the kitchen floor between the legs of Alexis Avery.
Were you able to draw any conclusions from that testing?
That profile was also a male DNA profile. Blake Scanlon matches this profile, and the expected frequency of occurrence of this profile is also 1 in 127.7 decillion, and Alexis Avery does not match this profile.
Thank you. Now I'm going to turn your attention to item 2-49, I guess specifically 0.11. Did you perform testing on that item?
Yes, I did.
And did you recall what that item was?
That was the swab of purple stains on the blade of a knife.
All right. Would you recall what color knife that was?
It was a knife that was found on the kitchen floor on top of the blanket by the sink.
All right. And what, if anything, were you able to tell from your testing on that item?
I was able to tell that it's a mixture of at least 2 individuals, including at least 1 male person. Major contributor was observed in this profile, and the additional low-level DNA was not suitable for comparison.
Can you explain what you mean by major profile?
Sure. So sometimes when we do DNA testing, we don't obtain the DNA profile that we obtain from evidence items is not just from one individual. We end up getting a profile that is a mixture or combination of different individuals in the same DNA profile. We're not able to separate the DNA out when we're doing the testing in the laboratory based on the individual people. So what we do instead is then look at those DNA profiles and see if we're able to actually separate the DNA profiles of the different individuals during that interpretation step. A major DNA profile just means that this particular DNA profile in the entire mixture contributes the majority of the DNA or the most amount of DNA in that mixture DNA profile.
Thank you. And what were your conclusions regarding this major DNA profile?
So for this, Blake Scanlon is consistent with the major DNA profile, and the expected frequency of occurrence is approximately 1 in 7.9 nonillion unrelated individuals, and Alexis Avery is excluded or not consistent with the major profile.
And could you explain nonillion?
Sure. So nonillion is just 1 followed by 30 zeros. Decillion was 33 zeros. This is a little less at 30 zeros.
Thank you. Did you perform testing on item 2-49.4.1?
Yes, I did.
And what was that item?
So that was the handle of that same knife that was obtained by the kitchen floor on top of the blanket.
And what, if any, conclusions were you able to draw from your testing on that item?
So this profile was also a mixture of at least 2 contributors. Again, a major male contributor was observed. The additional low-level DNA was not suitable for comparison due to the quality of the profile. And Blake Scanlon is consistent with the major profile again. The expected frequency of this profile is approximately 1 in 522.5 octillion unrelated individuals, and Alexis Avery is not consistent with the major profile.
And how many zeros are in an octillion?
An octillion is 1 followed by 27 zeros.
Thank you. Did you perform testing on item 2-50.1.1?
Yes, I did.
And what was that item?
So that was the handle of the knife that had purple and red-brown stains on it that was found on the left side of the kitchen sink.
And were you able to obtain a DNA profile from that item?
Yes.
And what conclusions, if any, were you able to draw from your testing?
The DNA profile is a mixture consistent with 2 contributors. This time I was able to obtain a major male DNA profile and a minor profile as well that was suitable for comparison.
And describe the major profile and what results you were able to obtain from that.
Sure. The major profile is consistent with Blake Scanlon. The expected frequency of occurrence of this profile is approximately 983 nonillion unrelated individuals.
Thank you. And you mentioned there was a minor profile.
Yes.
And what is that?
So a minor profile is kind of the opposite of a major profile. It's a mixture of 2 individuals. The minor is just what's the lesser amount of DNA in there. So major contributes the majority. The minor is the other side, which is the smaller amount of DNA that's present in that mixture profile.
Were you able to draw any conclusions based upon the minor DNA profile you obtained?
Yes. Even though the minor was less DNA quantity, it was still sufficient for us to do a comparison to it, and we were able to draw a conclusion.
And what were your conclusions?
We were able to say that Alexis Avery is included as a potential contributor to this minor profile, and the expected frequency of occurrence of the DNA profiles is approximately 1 in 237.9 quadrillion unrelated individuals.
But you can guess my next question.
Quadrillion.
How many zeros in a quadrillion?
A quadrillion has 1 followed by 15 zeros.
Thank you. Were you able to perform testing on item 2-5.3.1?
Yes.
And what was that item?
So that was the blade of the same knife that was found on the left side of the kitchen sink.
Were you able to develop DNA profiles from that particular item?
Yes, I was.
And could you tell us what your conclusions were regarding your testing of that particular item, portion of that item?
So this DNA profile was a mixture consistent with 2 contributors, including at least 1 male DNA. So again, we had 2 contributors, but this time I was not able to separate those 2 contributors into a major or minor profile, meaning that they contributed about equal amounts of DNA to that DNA profile.
And what conclusions were you able to draw from your testing of that item?
So both Blake Scanlon and Alexis Avery are included as potential contributors to this mixture. The expected frequency of occurrence of the DNA profiles comprising of this mixture is approximately 1 in 86.24 sextillion unrelated individuals.
And how many zeros are we talking about there?
Sextillion is 1 followed by 21 zeros.
Thank you. Did you perform testing on item 2-69.1?
Yes, I did.
And what was that item?
These were swabs of red-brown stains underneath Blake's right-hand fingernails.
Were you able to identify a DNA profile?
Yes, I was.
And what conclusions were you able to draw from that?
The DNA profile was a mixture of at least 2 contributors. Again, there was a major male contributor present in the profile. The additional low-level DNA or the minor DNA was not suitable for comparison for this profile. And Blake Scanlon is consistent with the major profile, and the expected frequency of occurrence of this profile is approximately 1 in 56.34 nonillion unrelated individuals.
Thank you. And item 2-70.1, did you perform testing on that item?
Yes, I did.
And what was that item?
These were red-brown stains underneath the left hand of Blake Scanlon.
Were you able to obtain a DNA profile?
Yes, this was a male DNA profile, so single source, no mixture. And the male DNA profile was consistent with Blake Scanlon, and the expected frequency of occurrence is 1 in 127.7 decillion, and Alexis Avery does not match this profile.
Thank you very much. I have no further questions.
Hello?
No questions for this witness.
All right, thank you very much.
That long? I have a feeling we need a sidebar. It's been a while.
May we be seen sidebar?
Yes.
Well, they are so predictable now. I did not know. I have 3 timestamps from today, so I did not know they were getting ready to go to a sidebar. They're just too predictable. But she's like, sidebar, oct whatever her numbers were.
Nally at this time, please.
Oh, sorry. Let's see what they say. I was like, I want to be.
Your Honor, the power call Sergeant McNally at this time, please.
Remember, they're using air. Hamilton.
Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you will give this court and jury in the case now on for trial will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
You're careful.
Morning, Your Honor. Morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Okay.
He just got there. He just got there. Just once, Hamilton. I just want the judge to say no. Just one time. This dude's like, I just got here. What could you? Oh, you're saying no to Gabby. I thought she was saying no to the lawyer. This dude, he's like, I just got here. What could I possibly have done? At least nobody's been as intense as that officer was yesterday. Man, that guy just had the most intense face ever.
5 minutes and
Like
I'll be right
that.
back in here, okay? So we don't upstairs, we'll get you right back in. I'm not gonna leave you in the courtroom, I just need to take care of it, okay?
I don't know because they walked up and then she wanted a sidebar. Cameraman, up. And then now he's just dismissed the jury. Well, if Chrissy was here, I bet she'd want a drink. I just know Hamilton's like gonna throw her phone, gonna be doing something. She's so tired of these sidebars.
I'm in the courtroom.
If you're gonna do it, at least let us hear.
I think we just can't have to leave it. We'll just take it.
We're gonna find you a case that you're gonna like the defense, Hamilton. I promise. I think he's sleepy today. And that is, again, why the chat just went downhill. I think Hamilton would like, I can see her face, but I just forgot her name. Diana? Diane? Diana? Oh, I can't think of her last name. The Matthew Moore defense attorney. I like her. I can't like her so much, I can't remember her name. Hamilton would like her. Well, okay then. Stop it. At least let us hear. I'm telling you, Hamilton, if I hadn't already done that trial, I'd do it again. You would like her.
While we're lining them up. The next witness is the ME.
Yes.
I think I gave you the numbers of the, someone, maybe Mr. Calafors can help out, because last time we had photographs, there were some that were a little different than what we marked for ID.
It's, I think, well, first of all, he's here,
Okay.
which is good.
No, I'm just trying to get ahead of the photograph issue before we.
I believe I've narrowed down or taken out all
Okay.
the ones I did want to ask the court to reconsider two particular
What numbers?
photographs.
What numbers? I'll look at them in the meantime. I'll hand you the ID documents and you can tell me which ones.
I have them numbered. Yes, so I would ask the court to reconsider 4 and 12.
And just give me the reasons why so I can look at them over.
Certainly. So 4, it's difficult to tell, but that's not an injury that was depicted in the ones that you've deemed admissible.
All right, so my intention was to make sure that each of the injuries were depicted at least once.
And I think what I think you can see, there is an I and there is an H, and they look, I mean, obviously the orientation of the letters is confusing, but the H injury is directly underneath the chin of Miss Avery.
Yeah.
And that is not depicted in this.
So what about 12? 12 is,
And 12, again, that is the one close-up of the very deep penetrating stab wound that the doctor will say is the wound that lacerated Miss Avery's kidney, gallbladder, pancreas. That's the most significant wound.
5 years.
all right.
That was it.
So 4 and, I've excluded a large number of these photographs. So 4 and 12 you can put in, all right?
Thank you.
Over object, subject to the objection.
Thank you.
You good to go, Jim? You coming?
Derek, it happened in January of 2019, so we're 5 years, right? Past that. You guys are making me question my math. Well, if it wasn't the Amazon guy, who was it?
If Attorney Jellison has any cases you want me to read at lunch on that cooling off period, I'd be interested in seeing them because
I
The ones
have
I've- the ones-
memo, a jury instruction, just memo that you could hand up.
do you have done?
Yeah, I probably would need to kind of hand change some words.
speak up.
Sorry, I probably would need to change a couple words in it by hand, but I could hand it up.
Okay, just as soon as you can, all right?
Sure.
We'll have some time to go. Get both of you get your jury instructions in when, like, by the end of today.
Oh,
Because we're moving toward the end of the evidence at some point in time. If not today, then tomorrow.
Spoiler alert. It did not go to the jury today. It's going to the jury tomorrow. So I'm going to go till the medical examiner comes up, and then we'll do the medical examiner's testimony tomorrow, and then go into closings, and then go into verdict watch.
Has there ever been a 5-minute break in all of recorded history?
No, that there never ever has. That's why I don't know why you guys say it.
Thank you for your patience, Mr. Green, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning again, sir.
Morning, sir.
Would you please introduce yourself to the jurors and spell your last name?
My name is Michael McNally. Last name is spelled MC, capital N-A-L-L-Y.
Are you employed, sir?
Yes, sir, I am.
By whom?
The Massachusetts State Police. I'm currently a sergeant with the Massachusetts State Police.
How long have you been a sergeant, sir?
For going on 3 years now. It will be 3 years in July.
How long have you been a trooper in general, total?
I've worked for the Mass State Police for 13 years now.
All right. And what is your current duty assignment?
Currently, I'm the executive officer of the Commonwealth Critical Infrastructure Program. We are housed within the Criminal Information Section. It is an information and intelligence sharing entity within the State Police.
And going back to 2019, did you have a different role in the state police?
I did in 2019. I was an investigator with the State Police Detective Unit in Hampden County.
And as part of what were your general job responsibilities as a detective in that role?
The function that I gravitated towards was homicide investigation, but we would investigate any major crime, but the majority of my time was taken up with homicide investigation.
And would you say it's common to assist other area towns in this county with those investigations?
Yes.
And did you in fact assist Westfield Police with an investigation in January of 2019?
That is correct. There was a homicide in Westfield, of which the State Police was the unit of jurisdiction, and then we did work with Westfield on that case, yes.
All right. And I know you kind of had several roles in this investigation. Is that fair?
Yes.
One of those roles was, were you present at the booking process of Mr. Scanlon?
Yes, I was.
And during the booking process, is it common for photographs to be taken?
Yes, it is.
And you were there while that occurred?
I was.
All right. Any questions, witness?
Yes.
Sergeant, I'm just going to show you about a dozen or so images. Can you just look through those to yourself? When you have a second, look up. Do you recognize those images, sir?
I do, yes.
What do you recognize them to be?
Blake Scanlon in the Westfield Police Department booking room during the photos that were taken during the booking process.
Are those fair and accurate representations of the way that he appeared when you saw him on that day?
Yes.
I would move to offer these as the next exhibits, please, Your Honor.
Objection.
I think we might get to see a couple of these when I was sliding on through today. I think there's some up, but I didn't stop to look at.
Maybe one or two.
Exhibits 51 through 62.
And sir, while the clerk marks those, let me ask you this. Is there a rationale or a purpose for taking booking photographs?
Yes, there is, and that is to memorialize the evidence, memorialize the body. Injuries will heal, blood can be washed away, evidence can be destroyed. So yes, that is the purpose of videoing or taking digital photographs of any scene or any individual involved.
Thank you.
So we're gonna have this something wrong.
Thank you. Sergeant, I'm displaying now exhibit 51. Can you see that image?
Yes.
And what do you recognize that image to be?
Blake Scanlon in with some bandages around his wrists, left and right hands.
Depicting or displaying exhibit 53. Can you tell me what is depicted in that image?
Again, Blake Scanlon with those scrubs lifted up, tattoo over his heart with the name Darla.
Displaying exhibit 56, can you tell us what is depicted in this image?
Yes, again, Blake Scanlon, just with his hands focused on, moved out to the sides. I've seen our crime scene services personnel do that when they're taking photos. Move your hands away from your body so we can get a better image of what exactly that is. But same individual, just a different perspective.
This is Exhibit 57. What are we looking at there?
That appears to be Blake Scanlon's right hand, and the injuries on his hand, perhaps to his knuckles, and then some blood in the fingernail area.
This is Exhibit 59. Can you describe generally what we're looking at in that particular image?
The palm of Blake Scanlon's right hand is shown, his wrist there bandaged up, and then some blood or an injury to those calluses on his right hand, on his lower right hand, his ring finger and pinky.
This is number 60, just displaying that briefly. Again, what are we looking at here?
The image of the left hand, left wrist taped up with some medical bandages, and then what the left palm looked like during that booking process. Dried blood and or injuries to that hand.
This is Exhibit 61. And again, what are we looking at here?
The back of Blake Scanlon's calves and bare feet.
And number 62, just briefly, what are we looking at here?
And the front of Blake Scanlon's legs, the front of his calves, his knees, and then his bare feet, with some red-brown substance believed to be blood on the right foot at least, and perhaps the left big toe. I think I could see some red-brown staining there too.
Sorry, but if his
Now,
hands are cut up, that's not
You
going to.
also performed another role in this investigation, is that true?
Yes, it is.
Did you have an opportunity to examine a cellular telephone?
I did, yes.
For the record, I am going to show Sergeant now Exhibit 36. If you could just take a look inside of that envelope, let me know if you recognize that item.
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that item to be?
Alexis Avery's, I believe the color is called rose gold colored iPhone. It has some sparkly rose gold colored case on it.
Thank you. And did you examine this phone?
I did, yes.
Now, let me ask you, let me get back to my spot. What sort of training did you have at that time, specifically regarding forensic cellular extractions? Is that a thing?
It is a thing, and it's a big thing now. It was not a big thing when I first came into the detective unit in 2014, but that has increased exponentially the importance of digital evidence and forensically analyzing that digital evidence. So at the time, I was a Cellbrite certified physical analyst, which trains you ultimately to extract data from the cellular phone. And I would liken that, my general age group recalls when we would have to bring our phone into our phone service provider, such as Verizon or whoever it might have been. They would take your phone in the back when you're getting a new one. They would plug it into a system and bring all of your contacts onto your new phone. So that's essentially what Cellbrite is. However, it is more forensically sound in that it will provide you with a document that cannot be edited, but the report from the phone will indicate mapping data, GPS data, cell phone data, phone calls, text messages, internet searches from that same platform. So Cellbrite is the company that has really cornered the marketplace for law enforcement purposes, and I was a Cellbrite certified physical analyst at the time.
And did you have to be trained on how to use that program?
Yes.
And just briefly describe what that training entailed.
The training entails, as I described with that Verizon store analogy, it is a plug-and-play system, but there's many intricacies to this plug-and-play system. It is ultimately determining the type of phone, the type of extraction cord that can be plugged into that phone, and then it could potentially be complicated if the phone is damaged or there is a locking device, passcode on the phone. So there are ways to get around that. Cellbrite, that training would entail selecting the correct device, selecting the the correct antenna or cord that you could then plug it into the computer and download it, and potential ways to bypass our security locks on our phones.
Have you performed these sorts of cellular extractions in the past?
Yes, I have.
Could you estimate perhaps how many times?
I would say hundreds.
And did you perform an extraction on that particular phone?
I did, yes.
I'm going to show you a disc, and just let me know if you recognize that item.
I do, yes.
And how do you recognize specifically that item?
So it is labeled as Alexis Avery report, and our report number 2019-108, our office code, my office code at the time, -13 is the report number. And then my initials on the back of this, as I was preparing for this trial, I did review this item, and these are my initials on the back, the date and time that I reviewed it, and that was March 11th, 2024 at 14:54 hours, so that's 2:54 p.m.
Thank you. May I have this marked for identification, please?
Yes, I'd be on
Thank you. And Sergeant, when you perform an extraction on a phone, is there some sort of report or printout that can be generated?
Yes.
Did that happen in this particular case?
Yes, it did.
Do you know approximately how big that report would be in total?
Total pages, I believe it was 11,000 plus pages, if I'm not mistaken. I know they can be huge. I've seen 26,000 reports. I believe this specific one was 11,000.
So that's just everything from the phone.
It is. And just to clarify, everything from that type of download for that phone, not necessarily everything from the phone, but for this specific report, that was everything from that report, because there are different capabilities with different phones. So just to clarify, everything from that type of download, and there's at least three different types of downloads that you can get. Some are more voluminous than others.
Yeah. Who doesn't bother me, Hamilton?
All right, Trooper, Sergeant, I'm going to show you the first 2 pages of that lengthy document.
Who with the
Yes,
T?
Can you just take a minute to review those?
Claire.
You recognize what's depicted in those first 2 pages of that report?
I do, yes.
What is that?
So this gives the date and time that I did the report, which was January 25th, 2019. At the time that I did it, 10:23 a.m., it appears in UTC time. It lists my name at the time, Trooper Michael T. McNally, the location that I did it, our office in Springfield, the report number, my department, the type of phone, and that's all on the first page. And then the second page is a table of contents of sorts, and it will tell you specifically, it lists call logs, chats, contacts, device notifications, text messages, MMS messages, phone history, and so forth on the second page, table of contents, if you will.
And is it fair to say that this document, this huge document,
Yes.
is searchable?
Yes, it is.
So you could, if you wanted to go to call log, for instance, you could navigate to that.
Yes, sir.
And that's just a summary of the report and what you did and whose phone it was.
Yes, sir.
I would offer these 2 pages as the House message.
Imagine him like, I'd be a copy.
So next, I want to go to call log. And it seems silly, but can you tell us what a call log is?
Yes, it would be a ordered number of the calls that were completed, made from the device, incoming and outgoing, and or missed from the device. So it will provide them in a list format of which direction the call is coming from or to, and when it was missed. A date and time is also associated with that, so it helps us order them. Cellbrite does that in the report for you automatically. It will list them in chronological order or reverse chronological order.
And in this particular case, you already mentioned this, I think, briefly, but the date and times on this particular call log are in a unique format. Is that correct?
I would say if you're not familiar with the types of reports, it could appear to be unique, but it is in UTC, Universal Coordinated Time. I also understand that acronym does not seem to make sense, Universal Coordinated Time, UTC, but that is, if you'd like me to explain what that is.
No, just if you could explain, if you could explain what, not the acronym is, but what is UTC time and how does that correlate to our general understanding?
So it is a universal time that all other time zones are determined from. So we will always have a UTC time as opposed to where we are now, Eastern Standard Time versus Central Time versus a West Coast time in our country. There is a universal time that then an equation is applied to that, and we could subtract or add hours to it, and that will determine our local time zone.
All right. And in this case, do you recall what the specific UTC designation was?
Yes, it was -5 hours at this point. So that is in standard, that is in the time zone that it was. It was -5 on that report.
So whatever UTC time we are looking at,
correct,
we would have to subtract 5 hours from to get our local time affiliated.
Local time, January of 2019, that would be a -5.
Right.
Yes.
And could you explain, again, some may or may not be familiar with this, but all these times are in military time, correct?
Correct, yes.
So, for instance, just so we can be on the same page here, if there was a call to 911 on 1/13/2019 at 16:02 UTC +0, what does that mean? How do we understand that as a local time frame?
So 16:02 is 4:02 p.m. Military time is that 24-hour time cycle where you would add 12 to your current time, and that will give you your military time, add 12 hours to it. And in this situation, 16:02 would be 4:02 p.m.
And then you subtract 5 to get to the local time.
Correct.
So fair to say it would be 11:02 a.m.
Yes, and 16 -5, 11:02. Yes.
Okay, with side-eyeing the defense, like, don't even think about asking me anything.
Sergeant, I'm going to show you now 3 documents. And again, just take a look at them and let me know if you recognize them.
Yes, sir, I do.
What do you recognize those to generally depict?
This is the call log, pages 3, 4, and 5. So in subsequent order, these would be right behind that initial report document with my information when I did the extraction, and then the table of contents, if you will, on the second page, and then it gets right into a call log, which is page 3, 4, and 5. So this is pages 3, 4, and 5 of that call log.
And is there, what is the last call on the call log?
The last call on the call log, and this is in reverse chronological order, is January 13th, 2019 at 16:33 hours. And I can convert that to local time
if you could, please.
Yes. So that would be 11:33 a.m. on January 13th, 2019.
And what is, if we go back to the earliest in time, chronologically backward, call log?
I know.
I believe it's 42 on page 5. What do we have there?
Yes, so that is January 10th, 2019 at 19:30 in military time, 19:30 -5. That would be, 19:30 hours, 2:30 p.m. on January 10th, 2019.
Well, he's not like angry.
And so is it fair to say that the call log that you're holding, those 3 pages, that includes all of the incoming and outgoing phone calls from that device during that time period?
That's correct.
Then I choose to offer these 3 pages as the next exhibit.
64.
She will run over that defense attorney if she tries to ask her anything with all her ands and ums.
I think if I display this, it'll be a little bit easier for people to understand. All right, so now display exhibit 64. It's not.
Hello.
Make that focus. Yeah, okay, that's too much. A little out. Yeah.
That's not funny, Kermit.
Okay, so for instance, we already discussed number 2, right here. Just describe and just tell us what outgoing means. It seems kind of obvious, but you're the expert. What does outgoing mean?
Outgoing call, a phone call from that phone to that number, 911 in this situation. So that phone made an outgoing call, dialed 911, and hit send to that number.
At this time.
Correct.
Which we know is 11:02 a.m.
Listed as 16:02 -5, 11:02 a.m.
And what about missed? What does missed mean?
Missed means a phone call was placed to that hand device and the call was not answered.
What about outgoing?
And an outgoing call would be someone taking action with that phone, dialing a number or going to the contacts and pressing send on that phone, an outgoing phone call from that phone.
And speaking of contacts, you see that at some points in red here, there's actually names associated with those. Is that fair to say they're from a contact list?
In my experience, that would be the contact list within the phone, yes.
I'm gonna have nightmares about that stare. Hello, shoulders.
I'm going to show you 3 more pages.
Oh, Lord.
And just tell me if you recognize what those 3 pages are. And I'm going to hand you back exhibit 64 as well.
Okay. I do believe these are the same documents.
And is there any difference between exhibit 64 and the 3 pages that you're currently holding?
I don't see a difference. I'm seeing the same. Okay, I do see, yes, okay, yes.
And what is the difference?
Yes, so it is the same call log, and this also depicts whether the call was deleted or not. And it provides another column on this second sheet that you gave me, aside from the first one that I looked at, with whether it was deleted or not. And in blue, it tells you the date and time that was deleted.
And so actually, so the blue, do these times correlate to these times, but just converted?
That's exactly what they are, yes.
All right. So that's an edited document with the times, the math is essentially done so that the math is done on that.
And it's done for you, correct. And it's in Eastern Standard Time, the deleted time and date.
All right.
Yes.
And I just want to be clear that this is, let me strike that. I'll come back to that. I'm going to show you 1-page document. So you can navigate to search history through this program, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
All right, and I'm gonna show you what's, it's page 2,632. Just tell me if you recognize what that is.
I do, yes.
And what is that?
It lists a number of searched items from the phone. So these would be internet search items, and it'll even tell you how they were searched, the source of the search. And in this situation, it was Chrome or Gmail were the search, and then the value that it gives you in the column right next to where you're searching for this item online is what is typed into the phone to be searched.
And is that a fair copy of that page of this overall cellular extraction?
Yes, it is.
I would offer this as the Commonwealth's next exhibit, please. Oh.
Well, I'm glad you figured it out, Carmen. Especially since you live in Central Pacific time zone. That guy is intent. They have an approach. Dang. Oh, he's cheating. He's looking down at the paper. Trying not to look at the Jerry. He's like, when do I get my next cup of coffee? I need some. Slowing down. He's slowing down. You know what he's looking at. You know what he's looking for. Wrong state, wrong courtroom, sir. He's crashing. He's crashing. That's right.
All right, so this is the exhibit 35.
Attorney Elkins, please. 15. Oh, yeah. You know, you copied it though.
Okay.
Hold it over for now.
Exhibit number 65. 65.
Sorry, I'm going to show you exhibit 65. And if you could just tell us what information is contained in this document.
We see it is numbered, and of these search items, 1,560 of them, we see that on the top title bar there. And then in the first column, what number search that is, and that is correlated with the timestamp, associated with the timestamp. So that would be January 13th, 2019 at 15:52 a.m. 15:52 hours, which is 10:52 a.m. That -5 there. And then Chrome is how this item was searched, Google Chrome, and then the value of what was searched. And in that first column, it's listed as how to mimic a VO. And then we see some clarification in the search, the next search after that, search number 2, how to mimic a voice.
So what we can tell from this is that that value was entered onto this device.
Correct.
Yes, I'll take 64 back as well. Thank you.
That is my story.
All right, and I'm going to show you 4 more pages for the record out of this document. The pages 2667 through 2670.
Yeah.
We've gotten so far. So far. He's looking back up at the ceiling. He knows what we've all been looking for months and months, and we've not found it yet. He's like, I'll find it.
Once more, because I need to have some time to discuss something with the lawyers outside of the presence. So we're going to take a break and be back in here. We will have you back in here just as soon as we have this discussion. The purpose of these breaks is just, believe it or not,
I'll take
just
5
to make
minutes.
sure that the process moves forward as efficiently and fairly as it can. And I know you know that. And so thank you all for your indulgence. I'll see you in just a few minutes.
I can give you time. No, it'll all be live.
Anything, all right?
This trial could have been over yesterday. I hope not, Gabby.
Sergeant, we're going to ask you to step out into the hallway while we talk over. Okay, so I have before me 2667 through 2670. On 2667, the top of the page will be redacted. Now we're into the defense wants to bring to my attention certain other aspects of the balance of these messages, which look like they're numbered 1 through 66. So let me hear you on that.
You got it. Hamilton, it feels very repetitive that it's just over and over and over on the same things. Well, that's why, because we haven't got to specific time yet. I think if you're going to object, you'd be at least ready. Yes, exactly. Yes. I used to live on Mountain Time. It was nice. We could have 2 chances to watch our shows, once on the late time and once on the early time.
So I think content-wise, we don't have any problems with the latter messages. The last,
Be more specific, please.
anything below number 12, any higher number than number 12.
Okay.
So I want to talk about that first page
All right.
from items 1 through 12.
Okay.
So 12 is the last item that is an outgoing message to Miss Bray. And after that, until then, there's a conversation between Miss Avery's phone, and I think at that point, Mr. Scanlon and Miss Bray, and I believe all of that comes in for verbal completeness. But after that last message, he's not responding anymore. So I would suggest that further messages from Miss Bray be redacted from the document. The fact of messaging should come in, but the content of the message should not. And then the messages outgoing to Miss Green would come in. That's my suggestion.
Now we're just focusing ourselves on 1 through 12, right?
1 through 12, just
Okay.
focusing ourselves on 1 through 12.
They're red though. They're the messages that you're talking about from mom on this document are opened in red.
The last 3 say unread. So I would suggest those would certainly be out. Mr. Scanlon did not read those. The message number 7 states unread. So if we're talking about the effect on Mr. Scanlon, then we would go to number 8 that the other messages would be.
All right, do you want to be heard on that, Mr. Green?
Your Honor, I believe that the content of the messages is admissible. We already have in evidence that those messages from mom, her phone number, we know that's Jessica Vasquez Bray's number, attempting to contact this device. Again, as counsel says, they go to the timeline, the state of mind. They're not being offered for the truth. Simply because they weren't read, I don't think is a basis to exclude them if we're including all of these other messages as well.
Okay.
I don't know that Ms. Bray's state of mind is at issue.
Well, we have, what do you say to that, Mr. Green?
Well, I think it kind of dovetails with the defendant's state of mind because it's
I wish when I showed that
it's
here, it
when
showed what you sent.
mom says,
Smiling poop
you
emoji.
need to call me right now. I've watched too many Dateline episodes that actually that.
Which is not read by Mr. Scanlon.
But those are messages that are unread, but it goes to the.
Everything before, doesn't, I mean, the 911 call is at 11:02, right?
Correct.
So everything from 7 up is after that time.
That is
right.
That is true.
So it's not quite, everything from 8 higher precedes the 911 call. So I'm inclined to agree with the defense because, we can infer that he didn't read these because he didn't see him, or that they showed, the police showed up and all that, and he wasn't reading them. So everything from 7 higher is frankly not relevant to this. Everything before that informs his. It's not hearsay because it goes to his state of mind at the time, and it ties in with the other evidence that you've offered with the 911 call. But everything after that, it's a statement from somebody else, which isn't even offered.
That's fine, Your Honor. I just would note that counsel is suggesting that messages 4, 5, and 6 come in because that's where Mr. Scanlon allegedly texts his mother and says, "I'm sorry, I messed up."
Oh, right.
But I mean, by the court's logic.
No, that's the jury could find that that's an admission by him. So we're talking about text 1, 2, 3, 7. 1, 2, 3, and 7 are out.
1, 2, 3, and 7 are out.
Right.
Everything else.
I agree.
Is in.
Okay. And the top page of 2, 6, 6, 7. Okay.
Okay. We can certainly do that. Make those redactions.
That's my ruling.
It's like they didn't have any pretrial conferences or motions or anything.
We're gonna. I presume you want to. You might want to have somebody redact this, Mr. Green, while we're waiting. Here you go, Bill. Hand that over. I presume you want to show these messages, and you can show them by holding a paper over the ones on the top and the bottom, so that the jury doesn't see it now. And that's the way we're going to have to do it. We'll mark it for ID. It'll be marked as the next exhibit as soon as it's redacted. But you're going to want to put them on the screen, right?
I don't think I need to do that right now. I can certainly use the document in a closing argument.
I don't want to get in the way of you presenting your case. If you want to show it to them now, just,
I'm just going to have them authenticate what this is, and then mark it for ID, and then redact it later.
It's entirely up to you.
Thank you.
All right? Okay. All right, we're all set for Sergeant McNally, and we're all set for the jury.
He had one.
Sergeant McNally about those texts and their content while he's on the stand. It's in evidence. It just needs to be redacted, so you're perfectly free to do that too, Mr. Green. All right?
Yes, Your Honor. I may just show him the last page, which we have no dispute about, so that they understand what sent means and who and what and whatnot.
It's up to you.
It certainly does not feel like it, Roseanne.
Thank you, Sergeant. Thanks, sir.
Well, they need to, Gabby. You go tell them.
No.
You're entering, all right?
Let me get up. Let's go.
Seriously, just bring something else up when they're bringing the jury in. Oh my gosh. He's like, I'm going to make a run for it. Uncle Fester over there is like, you better not. You better not. Yeah, Hamilton, I am with you. Carmen, thank you. You and Gabby smiling poop. Poo. I can say it. I just don't like it. It's like moist. I don't care about that word. Yeah, you bastards. Yeah, well. I don't believe it. Whoops. Anna poop. Right there. That was great. That was great.
I don't know what they're doing.
Nobody knows what they're doing.
Look at these, let me know if you recognize what they are.
Yes.
And what you recognize, those 4 pages.
Text messages from January 13th, 2019 at the latest, and then the earliest, January 10th, 2019, from Alexis Avery's phone, text messages.
Can I have this marked for identification, please, Your Honor?
I don't know him.
Friday.
I don't know who said that. Because him and the judge sound an awful lot alike.
And just for the record, with the court's permission, I'm going to display page 2670 of O for IDO. Just so we get a understanding of what we're looking at. And you can see here, there's a lot of information contained in this printout. Is that correct, Sergeant?
I'm sorry, that question again was?
Just walk me through what these columns mean, if you know.
Yes, so the number of message in what I just referred to, I'm not sure how many thousands there were for text messages, that would be on the far left-hand side, whether it was sent or received, sent or into the inbox would be received, and then 2, which number we can see, number 58 there, the top one that I can see on my screen, 58 from that phone number associated with that contact, that's saved as Blake. The next column is the date and time, 1/11/2019 at 14:28 hours. So that is minus 5 hours, and that would be 2:28 p.m. minus 5 hours for that Eastern Standard Time. Whether the message was read or not, and then the status is read, we see in the next column. And then for that top line, number 58 here, did you take the weed stuff is the message that was in the inbox, in the inbox for Alexis Avery's phone.
All right, and let's do it again with this last message here, 66.
Number 66, the inbox. So that was a message received from Blake at that phone number at that date and time, 1/10/2019. It was read 1/10/2019. Approximately 14 minutes later, because we could see the column just prior to that is 21:46. When it was read, 2200, that's 10 p.m. minus 5 hours again, if we're looking for the accurate time, the status is read, and then it reads, even though we're breaking up, why can't we still love each other and this smoothly and nicely, babe?
Thank you. May I have one moment, please, Your Honor?
Yes.
Yes. Or something. A dare.
Thank you, Sergeant. I have no further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Ross?
Is that less formally offered?
No, it has not been entered. It's old for ID, but it was offered, and we were going to redact pieces of it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I hadn't missed the,
Right, no, it'll be, as soon as we redact parts of it, it'll be admitted into evidence.
Good point, Hamilton.
So here you go, Bill.
Bad she didn't. He's really thinking about something.
When I use the word redacted, it simply means that certain portions of a document or exhibit will be whited out or not evident. It's been ruled inadmissible. And so in that fashion, we can get you the exhibit. You're not to speculate as to what that information might be or could have been. Whatever's been redacted is not evidence. And you're to confine yourselves to just the evidence and not to any speculation. Okay? All right.
good afternoon, Trooper.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Just a couple of questions for you. You, after police responded to the scene on White Street, you went.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can we just have the mic adjusted over? Thank you.
Sorry. You went to the hospital where Mr. Scanlon was taken after he was taken from the apartment, correct?
That's correct. It was the Noble Hospital in Westfield.
And while you were there, you took some photographs of Mr. Scanlon in the hospital room, is that correct?
I don't recall taking photographs.
Let me, just one second. Do you recognize these?
I do, yes.
What do these pictures depict?
That is Blake Scanlon in his hospital bed at Noble Hospital, and I very well could have taken these photos. I don't recall taking them.
Okay. Is this a fair and accurate depiction of Mr. Scanlon's appearance in hospital that day?
That is how I remember him in the hospital that day. Yes, it is.
I'd offer these as a single exhibit, these three.
No.
Without objection. Let's do I like them separate. So let's do separate.
66, 67, and 68.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I
And just for
understand that.
Mr. Scanlon was taken directly to the hospital before he was booked, is that correct?
He was, I'm sorry, he was taken, could you say that question again, please?
So from the apartment, he was taken by ambulance to the hospital, correct?
I believe he was taken directly there. Yes, I'm not sure of anything in the intervening time, but I met up with him at the hospital. I went directly to the hospital. That's where I first saw Blake Scanlon.
And he was taken to the hospital because he needed care for wounds, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And is it fair? These are a depiction, this is a photograph of the wounds he was treated for?
That is some of them. Yes, ma'am. That's the right hand, right arm.
Okay.
Hey, Dee. Oop. Hey, DG, how are you doing?
And this is another shot
I'm sorry, that was his left, I believe. Yes, correct.
left, yes.
Left arm, yes.
I think this is not the one I showed previously. And this is just another shot of it. Is that
Yes.
Correct?
Left arm, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And he was treated for these wounds and he was released. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So the bandages in the other photos that you identified earlier, those are from these wounds. Is that correct?
Yes.
No further questions.
No, thank you.
All right?
That's good, Rosie.
Thank you. Thank you.
He's like, I'm going to run on out of here right now. Imagine.
You're on the call with called Dr. Welton.
Dr. Will.
Tells his wife. She's like, I love you. He's like, I love you too. Okay. Sorry. But at least he just wasn't angry. He's just very serious and intense.
You solemnly swear that the evidence you will give this court and jury in the case now on for trial will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Thank you. Please take the witness stand.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Would you please introduce yourself to the jurors by telling us your name and spell your last name?
Yes, my name is Robert Welton, Welton.
And are you employed, sir?
I am.
By whom?
The Commonwealth of Massachusetts Office of the Chief Medical Examiner.
How long have you worked there?
It'll be 10 years in July.
What's your current role at the OCME?
I'm the Deputy Chief Medical Examiner.
All right. And could you describe your educational background, please, for everybody?
Sure. I have a bachelor's and master's degree in biology from the University of Massachusetts at Lowell. I have a Master of Public Health and Epidemiology and Biostatistics from Boston University. I have a PhD in biology from Boston College, and I have my medical degree from the University of Illinois in Chicago.
Thank you. Can you describe some of your academic appointments that you've held in the past?
Sure. As a resident in pathology, I had held a instructor and a clinical associate position through Tufts University School of Medicine.
And any prior military service?
Yes, I had spent approximately 11 years in the Massachusetts Air National Guard and 3 years on active duty with the U.S. Navy.
And in what capacity were you with the military?
I was a transportation officer with the Air National Guard, and I was a biochemist with the Navy.
And do you hold any professional certifications and licenses?
I do. I have a full active medical license in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and I am certified in public health.
And do you still belong to professional organizations?
Yes, I do.
And which ones?
I belong as a member of the National Association of Medical Examiners, the American Medical Association, the Massachusetts Medical Society, and the Society of Forensic Toxicology, amongst others.
Thank you. Aside from your academic background, is there certain specialized training that one has to undergo or go through in order to be certified to do the work that you do?
Yes. So I had done a clinical year, intern year in anesthesiology, followed by 4 years of training at Bay State Medical Center in pathology. And then I did a year's fellowship in forensic pathology at the Commonwealth of Massachusetts OCME medical examiner.
Thank you. Just so we're all clear, pathology is a specialized field?
Correct.
Which studies what?
Human disease.
Thank you. And could you just describe the overall nature of your work as a medical examiner?
Yes. So my job as a medical examiner here in Western Massachusetts is to examine the cases that are assigned to our office and to ultimately determine cause and manner of death.
And how, and this is, you can answer this, but how many autopsies do you think you've performed over the course of the years? And again, roughly.
In the 4,000 or so cases that I've done in the past 10 years, probably about half of those have been autopsies.
Okay. And have you testified before in this capacity as a medical examiner regarding your findings and conclusions of autopsies?
Yes.
And again, do you know, could you estimate perhaps how many times?
30 to 50 at this point.
All right, thank you. Now I want to turn your attention specifically to the reason we're here today. Did you have any case?
I know you're all going to be very, very disappointed. But you're going to have to wait till tomorrow. I meant to stop when he came on and I forgot. So we just let him get through all his credentials. I do believe, sorry, my dogs are going to start barking. I do believe that isn't he claiming self-defense now? I have to go back and read the description. I don't know why he didn't plead guilty because it's on there. But I think he was claiming self-defense when it clearly was not self-defense. Because there was 28 sharp wounds on her. So I do believe he did claim self-defense after that. I don't know. It's kind of crazy. And all the witnesses today, we went from no energy to slow down, people. Just everyone slow down. Well, Hamilton, you'll have to watch when you can, because this is going to the jury tomorrow. So that is why I wanted to get through most of tonight, so that we can, we'll do his testimony, because they're going to take a break for lunch here soon. And so we'll do his testimony, and then they'll go. The defense calls one rebuttal witness, and then they both rest. So yeah, I said this could have been over yesterday had they not had a gazillion sidebars. It should, because I always check. Except the one where there was a weird, the one I got the copyright strike on, or not strike, just a little mention with the Lollipop Guild. I don't know if that took the chat off, but I check it and I double check it every time that the chat replay is on. So it should replay. Well, we'll be here, Roseanne. I don't know how long you never know how long anybody's going to deliberate on anything, because you just never can predict a jury. I did see that somebody's family member was in hang on, Hamilton, was in Law and Crime Chat this morning. I couldn't figure out whose family member it was. Hamilton, when your chat starts playing, make sure that you hit take it off of top messages and hit all messages, because that might be why. She wasn't cheating because she had broken up with him. He just did not want to break up with her. They have a little girl who her mom has adopted. And so maybe in his mind she was cheating. She did go out with her cousin that night, and she did meet up with a coworker there. She did change her status to single before she went out. They had already discussed their relationship was not going well. He was sad. He didn't like it. They both had location services on each other on their phones. He wound up at the same place, found her and the new guy in the new guy's truck doing stuff, and calmly asked her to get out of the truck and calmly asked her to go home. And she did, unfortunately. And then everything went south. So she went out on Friday night. She was unalived somewhere between Friday and Saturday morning. He didn't call anybody until sometime Sunday. So he had her in the house, unalived, completely. He hit her jugular and she lost all the red fluid in her body. They said she didn't have, there was no blood. I'll clarify that. There was none in her heart. Her heart was empty. So I'm thinking she pretty much lost everything. So very messy, I'm sure. And then they found a pillow and a blanket next to her in the kitchen where she was. So I don't know if he was sleeping next to her too. When he called 911, he supposedly tried to unalive himself, self-delete. But I believe that those wounds were very superficial. That's what the state said. I think we might see I thought we were going to see some pictures of those. That might be coming in on the defense's only witness. Yep. Yeah, they weren't married. They were only 20. She was almost 21. Carmen, she was 3 years younger than you exactly. So, yeah. All right, where did it go? You guys are chatting quick. Yes, Hamilton. Thank you very much. I think y'all have. I wouldn't take it that far just for my own peace of mind. I couldn't. But number 2, I also don't want to wear orange or black and white stripes or whatever they wear nowadays. That's not going to be me. Don't ever want that to be me. All right. I'm going to go see what my dogs are doing, since they all seem to be outside. And it is still skunk mating season, y'all, for 5 more days. And then they better have got what they needed, because it's over. That's what the book says. I'm holding them to it at midnight on 3/31, 12/01. Sorry if you didn't get it. Yep. Ugh. Hate those things. Fortunately, it's been too cold for the little jerks. Yes, that's right. Remember, put it back in their pants or I'll cut it off. Show some class. I can't do it. Oh my gosh, I try to think of sheep and I can't do it. Show some class, you dirty skunks. It's not even close, and I know because I'm laughing too hard. It's fine. It's fine. I gotta figure out if I can, Gabby. You are not going to catch one. All right, give me a sec. I played it on my phone. I haven't saved it. I gotta see how my... Aw. I might have to play it tomorrow. It's what? I have to convert it, and I am. Okay, Gabby, I'm gonna have to play it tomorrow because it is it has brought up video dictionary, comma, YouTube dictionary when I tried to convert it because it said it needed converted. No, it played on my phone just fine, but I can't share that to my computer. Yeah. I just like I told your brother the other day, Carmen. I don't have to parent you in the sense of you're a child, but I do still parent you. It's just different. Because he said, "Well, I hope I don't need a parent." I'm like, "Nope, you still do." Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at it because I've never seen that screen. Lisa didn't call me a bastard and tell me to get the F out of the way. I knock on wood, Roseanne. Lots and lots of whatevers to keep me lucky. I have not smelled any for a while either. It's been cold and rainy, and I'm not even complaining about it because I haven't had to lock my dogs inside at night, which I'm definitely not complaining about that. Yeah, because you were grounded so much. Whatever. All right, guys, we will wrap this up tomorrow. We will get some rest because we're going 100 miles an hour when we get started tomorrow morning with this fella right here. Oh, I see what I did. I can't even follow my own timestamps. That's why I was so confused. I kept waiting for them to go to lunch. That wasn't lunch. That was morning break. Yeah, well, too late. You don't get grounded as an adult. All right, you guys. Have a good rest of your night. I'm going to go make sure my dogs are not getting in trouble. And then I'm going to go get some rest. And I will see you all tomorrow. See some of you on replay. And thank you guys all for joining me. So, good night, or good morning, or good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. But I'll see you guys later.